Dear brothers and sisters, we are journeying through the summer into our faith. And Jesus is teaching us. Jesus is a fantastic teacher. And he teaches by using stories. And the Gospels call them parables. And today we have three fantastic parables. Such beautiful parables because these parables tell us something about physical reality. Jesus first takes up the physical reality, and that physical reality has to be filtered, and he points to a spiritual reality. So what is the physical reality? He says there was a farmer who was plowing his field. And as he was plowing his field, he found a treasure. And with great joy, he hides that treasure, sells everything, and goes and buys that treasure. What a wonderful reality. Now, is it possible? Is it possible to find treasure? You know, when I was a little boy and with my brothers and sisters, my mom always used to tell me, look down on the road where you're walking so that you know where you're walking. And also remember, as you're walking, you might even find a treasure. So as little kids, excited and obedient to mom, we used to look down. And occasionally, we used to find a coin. And there was the excitement. So also the farmer, looking down and plowing, found a treasure. In those days, there were no banks like we have banks today. So where was the best place to hide their treasure, to hide their money, or hide their gold and silver and their jewels? Knowing that, people of other countries would come and conquer them, so they would do the best thing that they did, and that was to dig a hole and bury their treasure. These days also, when we are doing huge constructions in cities, when the construction workers start digging, they find treasure. So it's not uncommon. But what Jesus is saying is true. There was this farmer who was plowing his field, and as he was plowing, he found a treasure. So now when Jesus tells us this story, what is this story? What is this physical reality pointing out to? It's pointing out to a physical or a spiritual reality. What is that spiritual reality in this beautiful parable? First and foremost, that this farmer was working. He was going along his normal day's work. And in his normal day's work, he stumbles upon something very precious. You and I are journeying in life. Our life is a journey from our date of birth to the point when we die. We are journeying in our life. And life is a journey. Sometimes an exciting journey, sometimes a painful journey, sometimes a joyful journey. Our journey is a mixture of so many realities in our life. And therefore we need to look into our journey. And as we journey, we are going to find a treasure. And what is that treasure? We are going to find God. We are going to find God who has become one with us. And that is Jesus. What did this farmer do? With joy, he sold everything. He gave away everything and bought that field. Why? Because there was that treasure in that field. And therefore, he was looking for that treasure, to enjoy that treasure. That treasure changed his life. You and I need to find Jesus. Sometimes, many of us who are listening, all of you who are listening to me, most of you are baptized as little children. And we started our journey as Catholics, as Christians, and we are walking in that way. But sometimes it could happen, even though we are Christians, baptized from the cradle, we don't have Jesus in our life. We need to rediscover Jesus in our life. We need to find Jesus in our life, and that is the treasure. The day we find Jesus, the day we meet Jesus, that is the day our life will never ever be the same again. The second beautiful parable and teaching that Jesus is giving us on this 17th Sunday, the ordinary Sunday of the year, is this. Let me read the second beautiful parable. Jesus says, "Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. On finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it." Now, here is another physical reality. Let us look at this parable at face value. Jesus says, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant. So Jesus is comparing the kingdom of heaven to a merchant. And who is a merchant? One who buys and sells, one who trades. And what is the main objective of a trader? A trader, a merchant, always seeks to make profit. That's a good businessman, making a profit at the end of the day. And he says the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. So he's searching for something that will change his life, that is going to help him make it big and earn his big treasure and earn the fantastic amount of money that he's wanting. Because all merchants, all traders, all business people are always looking for a hefty profit. So here is a merchant then looking for fine pearls and something beautiful. Pearls were pretty rare in those days, not like these days where there are cultured pearls, but pearls that were natural pearls, and they had to go and dive deep into the sea to get those pearls. So pearls were a precious jewel in those days. And Jesus says, this merchant in search of fine pearls, on finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it. You see, this merchant, he knows that there is value in this pearl, and he finds this pearl of great value. What is his reaction? He sells everything, goes and buys that pearl of great value, because that pearl is going to change his life. So Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is just like a merchant in search. He is searching. In the previous parable, the farmer didn't search. He was living his daily life, plowing and using his talents in doing his daily work and living his daily life when he hits upon a treasure. But in this parable, this merchant is searching. He is set out in his journey of life to search. How many of us search? Do we search for the truth? Do we search for what is good? Do we search for what is right? Do we search for what is healthy? And when we can search, that aspect and that desire and attitude of searching, when we can search, we will find. That's why Jesus said, blessed are those who search, for they will find. And here is the merchant searching. We need to filter this beautiful physical reality that Jesus is talking and apply it in our daily Christian life, in our response to our discipleship. We need to search. Am I a Christian who is constantly searching for Jesus? Constantly searching to see how I can fulfill my life in Jesus. How can Jesus satisfy my deepest human desires and my deepest spiritual desires? And this man leaves everything, goes and sells everything, and buys that pearl of great value. So there are two things that we are learning here. Number one, that we are searching, and two, that we are prepared to give up all that we have to buy the fruit of what we are going to find in our search. Why? Because that fruit is going to change our life again. In our study now of these two beautiful parables for the 17th Ordinary Sunday, we need to look also at the first reading where Solomon has now succeeded to the throne of David. And he is so excited. He's a young man and he's ascending his father's throne. And a wonderful kingdom that King David left him, a kingdom of peace and a kingdom of prosperity. And now Solomon, being a young man, he wants to ask the help of God. And what does he do? He assembles his people, and then he goes up to the temple of the Lord and he prays. And what is Solomon's prayer? Solomon prays for wisdom and understanding and discernment. And at night that day, the Lord appeared to him in his dream and said, Solomon, I have heard your prayer. But you know something, Solomon? In your prayer, you have not asked for the death of your enemies. You have not asked for riches and prosperity. But you have asked for wisdom and discernment. What a beautiful request you have made. And I know you're sincere, and I'm going to grant you that prayer. So Solomon was granted the gift of wisdom and discernment. If the Lord were to appear to you right now, what would you ask of him? Would you ask him for a new job which pays well? Would you ask him for a happy family? Would you ask him for popularity? Would you ask him for good health? What would you ask Jesus for? Would you be like Solomon and ask the Lord, give me wisdom and understanding so that I may know you, love you, and follow you? Well, that is the fruit of the two parables today that Jesus is talking about. Wisdom and understanding to know who Jesus is. And as a consequence of that is to have the spirit of sacrifice and the spirit of perseverance. Now, the spirit of sacrifice, not many of us like to hear that word these days, because we are living in a world where there's a deep sense of individualism, the philosophy of individualism. I, me, and myself. All that is mine is mine. All that is yours is mine. That is the philosophy that we are living in. And we are so steeped into that philosophy that we don't know the meaning of sacrifice. What is sacrifice? Sacrifice is giving up of ourselves so that we may accept the greater in our life. And who is the greater? Jesus is the greater. Jesus gave his life totally for us because we were so important in his life that he gave up his own life even to the extent of dying on the cross. That was the depth of Jesus' sacrifice for us. What is my sacrifice in turn for Jesus? And the second beautiful gift that we need to pray for this 17th ordinary Sunday of the year is for the gift of perseverance. That we have found Jesus, we know Jesus, we love Jesus. Now we need to walk in that way that Jesus shows us. Is the way that Jesus shows us an easy way? Not easy at all. It is very difficult. That is why Jesus said, if you wish to be my disciple, forget yourself, take up your cross and follow me. That is the perseverance that Jesus is calling us to today in this beautiful 17th ordinary Sunday of the year. So there are two beautiful lessons that come out of Jesus' teaching today. And what are they? First, we need to search and find Jesus. And when we have found Jesus, give up everything. Put Jesus first. And when Jesus is first, then ask for the gift of perseverance to follow Jesus, imitate Jesus, and to live Jesus in our daily life. Let's bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for giving us this beautiful teaching that your Son Jesus has given us. He has compared the kingdom of heaven to a merchant, to a farmer. And you and I are those farmers and those merchants. Lord, help us to find the treasure of our life, Jesus your Son, so that the treasure may change our lives and help us to become more and more like him. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.